thank you so much for joining us live right here. We are www.techmec.tv. We're so much excited to have this very special and important guest. And I think for the second and third time we've been speaking to him, and we're very much excited. Almost a year after, we have got the president of the MDCT, with Senator Douglas Togarase Mwonzora. We do thank you so much, Senator, for giving us this time to catch up and reflect. I know a lot of things have been happening since the last time we spoke and we catch up. And let me just take you back. The last time we were having a conversation just after the hot contentious issues, but I think I would allow you to just welcome you to the show and the journey so far since we're now ahead of the elections.
Well, thank you very much, Tony. It is a pleasure always to be on your station. But I should agree with you that it's a long time since we talked. I think a number of things did happen after we discussed. One of them, I think, was the nominations within the MDC, the Congress that took place within the MDC, and now the preparation for the elections. We as the MDC are very happy that we have made good progress as a party. We are the only political party in this country that has held its internal processes, opposition political party that has done its internal processes. We have done our Congress, we have finished that, and the leadership question within the party is now settled. We are now preparing for elections. But as we were preparing for elections, there was then this delimitation report. We are totally opposed to this delimitation report. And in a nutshell, Tony, the delimitation report that was published by ZEC is actually, in my view, work in progress. This is because it does not meet the requirements of the law. Number one, a delimitation must take into account the population census. The problem, the reality in Zimbabwe is that the population census results are not yet out. The 22 population census results are not yet out. So ZEC then used what they called the preliminary results. Preliminary
from
means
the Zimstats.
From the Zimstats.
Yeah.
The preliminary results. Preliminary means what it means.
Don't they give a guidance of the actual statistics?
Remember, the delimitation report is supposed to last 10 years, and it is supposed to govern 2 elections.
Right.
You cannot base it on a temporary data. Preliminary means temporary. Temporary, it means provisional, it means transitory, it means subject to change. It means anything other than final. So what is envisaged in the Constitution is what is final. But assuming that ZEC was even right by using the preliminary report, the law says use the data for population, but ZEC went on to use data for adult population, and therefore they were not right. And then the next issue is that the Constitution recognizes that there must be, as far as possible, equal number of registered voters in
across
each constitution. Yes, but it also recognizes the impracticality of that, and it goes on to say whatever difference that may be there must not exceed 20% of other constituencies.
Is that not the act of the electoral law that pronounces that? Is it ZEC or is the electoral law that says at least 20 plus or minus?
It is the Constitution. It is actually section 1616 of the Constitution. Right. It says the ZEC must consider population, it must consider geography, communication, community of interest, the registered voters. And then it goes on to give a proviso to say, in order to accommodate these factors, it may be necessary to vary the numbers in each constituency, but the variation must never exceed 20% of the constituencies. Now, what ZEC did is that it worked an average, and then said it must not exceed 20% of the average, and upper limit, or below 20% of the average. The average is not a constituency, Tony. The average is a fictitious constituency. The law says there must be no constituency in the country which has more voters than another by more than 20%. Now, the lowest constituency in this country is Bulawayo Central. with the 22,115 votes.
Right.
Now, if you compare it, just for ease of reference, if you compare it with Mount Pleasant, where we are, there is a voter population of 33,000, a difference of about 10,000, 11,000 votes. That's almost 50%
yeah.
difference. If you go to Manicaland, that is Chimanimani West, it's about 32,000, again a difference of about 40,000. So they fell foul of the law. But they went on to even justify to say, we use the provinces. The 20% applied to constituencies within that province. Now we have tested that. And an example is Makoni West, which is the lowest in Manicaland. Compared to Chikangadanga Mvura, Makoni West, I think there's 24,000 voters. And Chikangadanga Mvura is around 33,000 votes. If you look at the difference, again, it's more than 20%. So the ZEC was very, very wrong in the way that they did. And unfortunately, the remedy is that provided in the constitution is either you go back to the previous boundaries, but we have a problem. The previous boundaries, the current boundaries, were actually delimited in 2008.
And a lot has happened as far as growth is concerned.
Exactly, and this is 15 years ago.
Yeah.
But there are other factors. Number one, it was done under a different constitution. Number two, it was done by a different authority. That time, the delimitation was not done by the Zimbabwe Election Commission. And as I said, it's 15 years ago. So we are left with one option. One option is that ZEC has to redo the delimitation report again, the delimitation exercise, so that we don't have electoral disputes. We want a Zimbabwe.
You're speaking, let me just hold you there, Senator Mwonzora. You're speaking as a legal expert. You're giving us the constitutional deficiency as far as the ZEC involvement is concerned. Let me just rope you quickly. I want to hear the flip side of you. As a politician, Machiavelli always says, an enemy within your problem is good for you. But I'm seeing you that you're also joining this. This seems to be a problem specifically within ZANU-PF, and ZANU-PF has already challenged and made a legal court challenge to force ZEC to, I'm sure there's a court challenge that is now waiting. You seem to be siding with them. Are you not in contract with natural political science that says, well, this is the problem within your enemy's camp, it shouldn't be a problem as a politician?
Besides being a politician, Tony, I'm a constitution maker, and I want the constitution preserved and respected. And it doesn't matter how many people agree with me, and it doesn't matter their identity, as long as they are correct constitutionally. But just to correct you, ZANU-PF has gazetted the delimitation report. In other words, they've accepted it as a basis for the election. So that's where
we have a faction that has challenged this in the courts.
Well, there will always be factions, Tony. But what is important is, what is the correct position? Should Zimbabwe go to elections under a faulty delimitation report? Now, I've heard other political parties saying it doesn't matter whether the delimitation report is flawed or not. We want election. It's almost like saying it doesn't matter whether the voters' roll is there or not. We want to have an election. I've never heard something more unwiser than that. Because we have walked this distance before. The MDC was denied the voters' roll, I think, in 2013. It was also denied the voters' roll in 2018. Right now, I think the Triple C tried to take the challenge to court, and they've lost it, I think, through Rusty Makam, yes. And to then say that we can go to election nevertheless, and not to point to this, is to go back to square one. We will go to election, we will have the same result, we will go back to the electoral challenges again. Now we want to grow out of this. I want to be able to lose, win fairly, and whoever beats me in an election, I want to be contented and I want to support them. But where the election is already faulty, for example, there doesn't seem to be agreement within ZEC itself. Right. Now we saw this in Kenya. The difference is that in Kenya the disputes arose after the election, yeah. And as they were collecting. But this dispute has started well before the election. The election now, obviously, is in August by operation of the Constitution. The 5 years run from the date of the swearing in of the president, which is the 26th of August. So somewhere there, that's where we obviously will have an election. And the disputes have started not within the opposition, not within the other civic organization, but within the election management board itself.
Yeah.
And that is a big issue, Tony.
So what do you think could be causing this? Sorry to just digress. Obviously, we are seeing two teams of ZEC. You are also a politician, an interested party in this upcoming election. What do you deduce? What do you think will be the real cause of this problem? Is it because some are abiding to the constitution of the law, or there are certain political interests that are dividing ZEC into two?
I am not so very sure what the cause is for the open division. I did run an organization, the COPAC. We had a lot of disagreements within COPAC. But when we were projecting outside, we projected common positions.
Right.
What that means is that within the Zimbabwe Election Commission, there is no common position. And that is rather strange to me. But obviously, where you have a scenario like that, one side is obviously correct, and the other side is obviously wrong. Now, I can't say which one is wrong, that of the chairperson or that of the other commissioners. But what concerns us is that the commission is not united. The commission is not in agreement about its product. Now, we are the consumers of that product. The Zimbabwean people are the consumers of that product. And the makers of that product are not in agreement. Now, disputes in ZEC. You are going in Parliament, we did point that out. Parliament was unanimous that this report is wrong across the political divide. And if you go to the Hansard, you will see my contribution in Parliament. You will see the contribution by members of ZANU-PF.
If your contribution and your argument wins the day, what would you plead should be done?
Well, ZEC has to redo. And here is what I do not agree with. I do not agree that we must take away ZEC's power to do delimitation. In fact, ZEC must be independent. And it must do its work, and it must not do its work in a hurry. What did happen here was because the population census delayed because of COVID. The country was under lockdown. And when the time came, ZEC again made a mistake in 2022 of thinking that population census means counting or means enumeration. No, population census means the enumeration, the collation, and the declaration of the final results. Then you have a population census. Just like voting. Voting is not balloting only. It's a balloting, collation, and the declaration of the results. This did not happen. ZEC has to redo. That is my prayer. ZEC has to redo using the correct information, consulting the stakeholders, so that Zimbabwe goes to an election which should be final.
You make a very fair argument, especially a legal one that says that you cannot extract a legal process out of an illegal result out of an illegal process, which then makes sense. Just before we leave this issue of this contentious ZEC issue, ZANU-PF or a faction is already made to the court. An appeal is waiting right now as we speak. Are you going to be supporting the appeal, or you are supporting a completely different readdress to this matter?
The case that is in court, that is being handled by Professor Maduku, I think that's the one you are referring to, brought by a gentleman called Tondrai Chidao.
Yes.
This is different from what I am saying here. This case deals with what the parliament should have done. And they said that when we consider this report, we should have called all the commissioners of ZEC, including those who are disagreeing with their chairperson. And we should have investigated why there were these differences. That's not the issue that we have as the MDC. The issue that we have as the MDC is that whether the commission was unanimous or not, it is a product. That product does not comply with the law.
So what are you doing about it?
Zimbabweans must well, we have a resolution that we are going to challenge it. And maybe the next few days we'll see what we are going to do. But certainly we are not going to sit by, we are not going to sit idly by and let our constitution be emasculated like that. I think enough is enough about tampering with the constitution. So we are going to be challenging it, and we had a meeting of the MDC Alliance principals, and the resolution was we will challenge this delimitation by all means at our disposal.
Some rumors say that President Mnangagwa also had his inputs and alterations or contributions as issued constitutionally to the report. Do you think his contributions were also part and parcel of the final ZEC report?
Unfortunately, the law doesn't allow us to have a copy of his contributions, so we don't know what they were. But if I compare the draft report that we considered in Parliament and the final report that must take into account what the president's inputs were, you will see that there is not much difference on these two reports. In fact, they are almost identical. So I don't know what his contributions were, but if the final product is a reflection of his contribution, then he is wrong. The constitution is not being followed, it's being abrogated. And he has a duty as the president to uphold the constitution.
Why did you not get him accountable? Because as far as we understand, we are not legal minds, but we are journalists. He also failed to put this delimitation report within the expected constitutional time frame. Are you in agreement or in disagreement with that fact?
We are in total disagreement. In fact, I think it was on 2 or 3 occasions actually. The delimitation report was handed to him, the draft, on the 26th of December, if I'm not mistaken. And he had 6 days to table it to Parliament. And 6 days would fall, I think, on the 3rd. He convened the Parliament on the 6th. So there was a violation there. Or one may argue that it was not of a sufficient degree. But a violation is a violation. And then coming to when a period in which he should have gazetted, there were 2 violations there. The first violation was that it was gazetted outside the time frame required by law. But not only that, Tony, it was an incomplete report. It did not have certain information that should be in a report. For example, it did not have the maps, it did not have the descriptions of the constituencies and the boundaries. It did not have, I think, the names of the constituencies and the boundaries. So it is a totally incomplete report. And I heard some rumor that...
So then, before we even go further, that means that technically you're in agreement. You cannot extract a legal document out of an illegal process altogether. In that case, because that means that it was gazetted outside the law?
It was gazetted outside the law, number 1. Number 2, it was even gazetted incompletely.
So that means it's a wrong document.
It's a wrong document. And unfortunately, it's an uninformative document. Because when you read the delimitation report, you must compare the maps and so on. You must have the descriptions. Not only that, Tony, if you look at the delimitation report, the polling stations are described not by their names, but by their numbers, by their codes. 005 CTC 2001. That's a constituency identity. Now to the old woman in Mzarabani, they know that the polling station is supposed to be Mwonzora Primary School. Now they will go there. But if you tell them that the polling station is 005 CTC 200, they may not be able to comprehend.
It's just that they cannot use.
And there is also another issue that the boundaries are actually supposed to be described using coordinates under the new system. And I haven't tested this, but I have seen some postings by Pacheco, I think,
saying they're in
Antarctica and some in Oceania.
Yes.
Our team did look at some of these and noticed that if you put the coordinates, especially in Bulawayo. You have areas which are not in any ward, which are not in any constituency. And our estimation is that 3,000 houses, 3,200 houses could have been affected. Now, 3,200 houses in an urban area, we don't know how many families we are talking about. You see, we are talking about more families than houses, obviously.
That's a very messed up document. I think there are many of these technical issues that are doing rounds. The bigger question is, if you are to protest or if you are to pray against a new procedure in the new voter law altogether, technically, how long would this take, and will this affect an election by August?
Well, it is possible that some of these things cannot be resolved before August. Definitely they won't. Now, the million-dollar question for Zimbabweans is, are they prepared to go to such a flawed election with a flawed document without a voter's roll? Because the voter's roll is not being given. Or are they prepared to wait for a little while to allow things to be put right? If the choice was mine, I would wait a little while to put everything right. Because here is the situation. If this election is to go on, we know already that it is challengeable. And it is challengeable on very credible grounds. And therefore it may be nullified. And when it is nullified, another election will be called. So instead of going through all that, spending the taxpayers' money, wasting the people's time, in some instances, wasting lives even, looking at the history of Zimbabwe. And then you go to a process whose result is not conclusive, which will be redone anyway. If it was up to me, I would wait, I would give ZEC the time that is needed to get the census report.
Let's be pragmatic, Senator Mwonzora. Should this plea go through and ZEC needs to redo this, make Zimbabweans understand, technically, how long do you think this may take so that a practical, complete voters' roll and delimitation report is done?
I don't think it will take less than another 8 months. If things are to be done correctly, even a year. Why am I saying this? It happened in Kenya. In Kenya, what they did is that they produced this draft report, sent it to the stakeholders, and the stakeholders were able to critique it. Now, fortunately for us, we now have this one. And then people must critique it, and the ZEC must put this into account. But importantly, Tony, this Zimbabwe Statistical Office, ZimStats, has not released the final population census results. And this population census was done, I think, between, the counting was done between February and April last year. God knows why we don't have the final result a year later.
But this could be something that they can easily speed up, because already census was done, enumeration was done. It's about them just comparing and finally bringing us the report. That could be done in the shortest time period if they wanted to.
Yes, of course. Knowing even that there's going to be an election, knowing even that there's going to be delimitation. Now, the delimitation now, after, let's say they give us, the ZimStats release the final results tomorrow, that means ZEC has to redo the delimitation altogether.
Using those.
Yes, ZEC had thought that the population is not important. That's what they were saying to us. What is important, according to them, is the voter population. But that's wrong, Tony, because delimitation is not for purposes of voting only. It is also for purposes of fair resource distribution. As you know, MPs get constituency development fund with which to service the constituencies. Now, if your constituency has 100,000 people, mine is 50,000 people, and we get the same amount, the per capita benefit of your constituents is 50% less than mine. So it introduces inequality. Then the wards, they are used when you do distribution, and the population is important. It's important because the whole population, not the adult population only, because we have child-headed families. We have people who are young but who need services. services are not for registered voters only, and so on. So population is critically important, and they have to consider this. And we have to be fair, Tony, with ZEC here. The issue arising from the absence of population data has nothing to do with them. It has to do with the country being in lockdown for 2 years, and the census could not be done on time. And when the counting finally was done, everybody was in a hurry to catch the time. So what was basically work in progress was then published as the final result. So I think Zimbabweans have to be patient, and we have to do a bit of some deferring in order for the things to be done right.
So you are clear that as a party you'd rather have the elections deferred till the voters' roll is done?
Till the voters' roll is done, till the delimitation report is done. And we are not the only ones who have done
How
that.
are you going to do this? Out of interest, how are you going to make sure that this prayer of yours is heard?
Well, it depends on on what we do. If we go to court, then of course we seek a court order. But the point I'm making, Tony, is that we are not the first country to defer elections in order to do things right. New Zealand, they have a constitution which says that their elections are held, I think, every 3 years. They had a serious COVID situation. They postponed it by another 4 months. And according to the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, I think, she said that this period will enable the election management board to prepare itself. ZEC is not prepared. ZEC is not even in agreement with itself. The Dominican Republic, they deferred their elections by a little time. The Chad, because of war, Liberia, they did the same, and so on. There is no price which is too high to pay for true democracy. We in the MDC, we want to lead this country to true democracy, prosperity, peace, and social justice. This delimitation report is a disaster.
Let me just quickly flip you and throw you rather into the pool of crocodiles. Some would then say the MDC is favoring this way because they are not ready for elections. They've been losing at the last by-elections and they want more time to stick around. How would you defend this narrative?
We only lost one by-election. I mean, we only lost one set of by-elections, and that is on the 16th of March. And since then, we did take corrective action, and we are a very active party. We were able to do our Congress. We are right now doing our programs. Now, we are not saying this because we fear losing elections. We are preparing for the elections. But we want to lead Zimbabweans out of the mess that they are in. The international community is saying one of the factors you must consider, they will consider to remove sanctions is if there are credible elections. That's what you get in Zidera. Zidera, they've made it clear that credible elections are a prerequisite to the removal of the sanctions. I want sanctions removed. I want the people of Zimbabwe, I want them to live in peace and international equality. If you go to the Commonwealth is saying have free and fair elections. Then we readmit you into the Commonwealth. Right. Our people benefit from readmission into the Commonwealth. Right. Scholarships, games, travel, and business. Then you go to the various observer mission reports for 2018 elections. The Commonwealth Observer Mission, the AU, the SADC.
They are still preaching the same word of constitutionalism. Including the elders that also recently came to Zimbabwe.
Exactly.
They spoke on the same thing. How ready and how prepared are you as a party to win this next upcoming election?
We are prepared to win, Tony, and that is why we are contesting. We now have a presidential candidate, and the presidential candidate declared to be so by a Congress. And we are in the process of identifying our candidates. We are going to be having our candidate selection soon.
Is it the primary election or is what?
Well, it will be a combination of both. In some instances where there is consensus, there is no need of a primary election. Where the constituents agree on the on the candidate, and they forward that candidate to us. What is important is who the choice is, not who their choice is. That is the constituents, not who our choice is going to be. So we are not going to impose. Where there are more than one, we are going to have primary elections, of course. So we definitely are going to have primary elections.
You fared very well as an MDC in the last election. This is a whole complete election with clearly different dynamics. Your presidential candidate in the last election was Mwonzora Wants. This time around is definitely your opposition, and you are running in with a new face, which is you, Senator Mwonzora. What are your prospects of winning this election as far as you are concerned?
Well, Tony, I have not lost the presidential election yet. You see, and I am yet to be tested, but I know myself. I know I am a winner. I know that there are certain things that we have to do right as the party. The message to the people of Zimbabwe, what we promised them, the way we are going to carry ourselves throughout this campaign is going to define the end result. And I'm very confident that I have a good team that here's what it takes. I have a renewed leadership that we have. My two deputies are people of very diverse backgrounds. Chief Ndlovu, the first vice president, is doing well in Matabeleland North. He's a businessman, but he's a very practical character. Paulina Mpariwa, former trade unionist, former minister, and also founder member of the MDC.
It makes me digress from this issue. You have maintained the structure of having two vice presidents. I'm not so sure if the vice presidents or deputy presidents, because you used to have a vice president and deputy president. This was a contentious issue that also made Chamisa come to power. Are you not also continuing with some certain illegal and wrong moves that you used to condemn during your time?
No. They now have the same name. Only that the difference is that you have a first vice president, second vice president.
Was this the constitutional amendment?
It is within the constitution. When we went to Congress, we had a few constitutional amendments, and they were adopted by Congress. And we then elected our people in terms of the constitution. And the logic was to synchronize the party constitution and the national constitution. Because at the Congress of the party, they then elect a presidential candidate, being the president. Indirectly, they also elected the vice presidents. So if we weren't to win the elections, there's a very little choice when it comes to the vice presidents. It will be the vice presidents of the party. They become automatic.
Basically just mirroring the nation system.
That's correct.
Let's go back to the issue that we're talking about on these upcoming elections. We've got three presidential candidates with higher probabilities, if I'm to be very unfair to the other players. We've got the incumbent President Emerson Mnangagwa. We have Nelson Chamisa, who has been tried in the last election and was heavily voted for. And then we've got you, who is almost the first time voting for presidential candidate. You are basically the new guy. That many people probably have you for the first time, including Chapman as well. What are your chances when you see this presidential race with people that you have already known, especially because you have known how President Mnangagwa performed the last election? You've also tested down President Nelson Chamisa is the last election, and you're coming in. How do you see your chances under such an environment?
Well, Tony, the fact that I am going to be in the presidential election for the first time does not mean that I was not involved in previous elections. As you know, in three elections of the MDC, I was actually a top official. I was sitting in the standing committee. In one election, I was actually the spokesperson responsible for crafting the manifesto, the messaging, and so on. The campaign, the media campaign. Under Morgan Changrai, I headed that. And under Nelson Chamisa, I was actually the Secretary General, the person administering everything.
Yeah, but the shift is on the new ball game now.
Yes.
You are appearing to Zimbabweans for the first time ever as the presidential candidate. Where does this put you in? How do you analyze, especially because you've got people who have done this before you and you have known publicly how they've performed. You are a first-time presidential candidate.
First of all, Tony, Zimbabweans must be excited that there is a new prospect, that they have a third choice. And They know President Mnangagwa, his performance in government, his performance in the past election. And in my respectful view, I am not impressed by that. And some may be. But we have also seen Advocate Chamisa, his performance in the last election, his performance post the election, his performance as a leader of his new party, is his performance. It doesn't satisfy me and maybe other people. I am coming in as a new player offering a new ideology, the social democratic ideology, and offering a new vision for Zimbabwe. Our vision for Zimbabwe is to lead Zimbabwe to true democracy, prosperity, peace, and social justice. And this is the first time that Zimbabwe would be led by a person who wrote the constitution of their country. In other words, there will be very few constitutional violations. So, by way of background, the difference between myself and my potential contenders, I am from the labor movement. I was the legal advisor of the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Unions. Therefore, pro-worker, pro-poor, and worked a lot in the civic organizations. I was a member of the task force of the National Constitutional Assembly. I was also a student, a leader of the a student leader during my time. And I have been an MP for Nyanga North, a rural constituency. I am one of the few people in the MDC under the current the leadership of top leadership of the MDC in the last 10 years. I'm one of the very few who have opted to contest rural seats, and I have won in the rural area. Others opted for easier seats, which were town seats, because we were.
The MDC has had this history of not voting on competence or in history of any politician, but they would vote you because you are a Mwonzora person, or they'll vote you because you're a Changirai person, or last election, many people have voted only because they were Chamisa people. This time around, do you think you're honestly going to be winning because you're no longer a Changirai, a Chamisa person, but you're now a Mwonzora person running for Mwonzora? Is it unfair for those who are saying you and Chapman are going to be the underdogs, getting less than 5% of this election?
Well, I don't know about Chapman. I have not heard much about him. I don't know much about him. But certainly there are people who are underestimating me, and they are terribly doing that. And this is not the first time that people have underestimated me anyway. And I'm kind of enjoying it. Coming as an underdog, as they say, I just want to cherish the day that we are going to surprise them. And we are going to surprise them. We are aware of our position. We are aware of what Zimbabweans are thinking. We are aware also about what Zimbabweans who are loud on social media are saying. Now, what Zimbabweans, general Zimbabweans are thinking, and what Zimbabweans who are very loud on social media are saying may be very different. What Oporo Chingono may be saying, may be thinking, biased as he is, may be different from what Mbuya Mainoti in Nyanga North will be looking at.
Using the last by-election, is that not fair enough to judge you using the by-election, which you were not very popular?
Sorry, Tony, the last by-election is gone. It's gone. It's history. And I want my friends within the opposition, especially the Triple C, to listen to the wise words of Gary Kasparov. He has a concept of the burden of past victory. This election is gone, is dead and gone. We are looking for the new election. By the way, the by-election was not a presidential election. I was not even a candidate there. And you may know that there was an argument within the MDC among the candidates on whether to put my picture or not. And you may, if you do the statistics, you may see that those candidates who refused to put my picture, no Resti Marara is a classical example. He refused to put my picture on his posters. He had 65 votes in a constituency. You may say the president is unpopular. What about the people who like him? Where were they? And he was one of the people who were well funded. 20,000 he had. And he had 65 votes. There was Tendai Mcheka Anzu. So I was saying, Tony, that if you look at the last election, by-election, there are some officials in the party, I think they started their rebellion already, who refused to have my picture. No Rest Marara is one of them.
Is he still a member of your party?
He's no longer a member of our party. He took the party to court, and by operation of the constitution, once you take the party to court, you have dismissed yourself. He had 65 votes without putting my picture there. And we had an old...
Do you think if you had put your picture, it could have been better?
It would have been different. Because...
How about those who put your picture and they've dismally performed as well? Is that
there was no one who put my picture who dismally performed.
On the by-election?
Yes, they lost, but they did not dismally perform.
Okay.
If you look at, I think an old man called Marudza in Mashona and East, he had over 300 votes. He had my picture in his posters. You had Tendai Mcheka doing council in Fakose. He had about 300 votes. Bernard Alufisha council, about 300, 400 votes, somewhere there. The point is, those who put the president's picture and those who did not, there was a definite trend within the MDC. But if you look at the performance of Changirai in 2008, he had more votes than the MPs. If you go to performance by Nelson, Advocate Chamisa, he had more votes than MPs. And if you go to the votes of Mr. Mwonzora, they will have probably more votes than the MPs. But we aim to have control of parliament. We aim to have the presidency. The purpose of our presidency is not that I should live in a better place, have more power and so on. We want to sort out Zimbabwe. Our vision is to make Zimbabwe the economic and commercial hub of the African continent. We are endowed with almost every mineral on earth. We now have lithium, we have gold, diamonds, platinum, and we have liquid natural gas. And we need to put our policies right. What we have, we are able to develop this country. So we want to develop this country in a manner that does not leave anyone behind. And we are the only political party which is emphasizing on the youth. And we are saying the youths are leaders of today, not leaders of tomorrow. And to the Zimbabwean youth, we are saying there is no better day that is going to come. You must claim your rights.
You're very confident and very clear, Senator Mwonzora, especially within your policies and where you're going. If I may just take you back on a point of clarity, what did you learn, or why do you think you did not win the by-elections? Because you should be very clear on principles and policies and agenda and going forward. But coming back to this issue, especially after the split with the Advocate Nelson Chamisa led party, your party didn't win the by-elections. What do you think caused this, and how are you going to be changing this?
There were endogenous as well as exogenous factors. Exogenous factors included a partnership that was there, formed between CCC and G40. And this partnership was bent every day on throwing mud at me and the party. And they did that. You had, and I'm sorry to say, the late Alex Magaisa, Wopol Chingono, Jonathan Moyo, all these guys. They teamed up day in, day out, specializing in mudslinging.
So you say the social media worked against you?
It did.
It worked against you?
It did.
So do you also believe that the same social media can work against you in the next election? Because it seems to be a bit contrary.
We underestimated at that time the power of the social media. We are now wiser. And if you go to the social media now, you can see that there is relative equanimity there. And we have a social media strategy. And the Zimbabweans ought to be expected. And we are now prepared for our opponents. That is number one. Number two, we worked on quite a number of assumptions. First, that the structures that we thought we had still were intact. when the structures were not intact. Traditionally, the MDC campaigns on the basis of their structures. The structures are the backbone, and you design your strategy on the basis that you have a district chairman, you have a ward chairman, you have secretaries, and so on and so forth. And when you disseminate information about strategy, these people then act. We did not have them. And we assumed we had them. That's why we quickly went into restructuring of the party. And I think we are over 90% now complete with restructuring of our party. We are the most structured opposition party in this country.
Honorable Senator Mwonzora, we do thank you for this first part of the interview. For now, I think it is fair enough just to call it your reps, and we do appreciate this time. We're going to be going again for the second, third, and many more, especially as we are going into this election season, where we need to make sure that we give you undue attention and make sure that Zimbabweans out there get to have an opportunity to fully understand and hear from your policies.
Thank you so much, Tony. Thank you.
And of course, we do thank you so much for this interview that we've had. We've been speaking with the leader of the MDC, that is the president of the MDCT, Honorable Douglas Togarase Mwonzora. First part of this interview is we seek to look into the issues of the voters' role, the delimitation role, and more importantly, their preparedness for this upcoming election. We are going to be giving you much more of this as we get to the next election, in as far as their party policies and where they're wishing and driving Zimbabwe forward for the best of the electorate, so that we are much more informed as far as the decision making is concerned in party choosing of your choice. My name is Tonio. It's always a pleasure to have you here. We'll be back soon once more again.